Good morning, folks. Thank you very much for joining this webinar titled Where to Start Launching or Adding a Direct-to-Garment Line of Business. My name is Joe Longtin. I'm the Marketing Director for AnaJet, and with me on the call today is Chuck Northcutt. He is the owner of DTG Ready and Creative Promotions, also known as the Digi Guy. Good morning, Chuck. And then we're going to talk about two different phases of growth. The first one being startups, folks who have just begun or haven't even started with direct-to-garment printing, and then to talk to hopefully some existing businesses, folks who've been in the garment decoration business or the imaging business, or they already have some other type of shop and they're just adding a direct-to-garment printer to the mix. Then we are going to have a Q&A session where I'll take your typed questions. The interface has a little bar on the right side that has a little box where you can enter in questions at any time during the call. So Chuck, can you see the agenda screen?
I can, very clearly.
Good, good. We're going to move forward. So just a little bit about AnaJet, our plug. We are the makers of the top-selling Sprint and the very popular Empower I series, which we just launched in April of this year. Each one of these is the fastest single-platinum direct-to-garment printer in its individual class. We are all designed, built, sold, and supported from our headquarters in Costa Mesa, California. And we do have 30-plus distributors around the world selling in something like 75 different countries. But all of new printer sales in the United States are factory direct. So we're also known for our free lifetime training and live technical support. These are great benefits, especially if you're just starting out in direct-to-garment. To tell you a little bit about Chuck Northcutt, he has 25-plus years in the garment decoration business with a high emphasis in embroidery, and now lately the last 6-7 years with a heavy emphasis in direct-to-garment business. And he also launched recently a small t-shirt company. Chuck is a well-known and well-respected technical trainer, and he provides field service and support. He also represents AnaJet as a customer advocate at many of our trade shows. He has blogged pretty heavily, and he's presented pretty heavily alongside us and by himself when it comes to his expertise in garment decoration. Anything else you want to say there, Chuck?
No, boy, it's like I write my own press releases. Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
So the question is, how long have you been in business? And if you just take 10 seconds to click on this to let us know who are we talking to. We want to be able to speak to everybody on the call, and we know that there's going to be a wide range of skill sets and wide range of expertise. Wow, that's amazing. There's a lot of folks who have been here been in business more than 3 years. I'm just going to allow 10 more seconds here for this. Okay, great. So what I'm seeing here is that 40% of the folks on the call have been in business for more than 3 years. So that tells us that there are a lot of folks out there who have experience in garment decoration or the imaging business in general who are thinking about expanding the direct-to-garment business or just buying a printer and want to know what their next steps are to really make it take off and pay for itself. I'm seeing 25%, a full quarter of you folks, have not even started the business yet. That's great because we still have valuable data that you can use here. And then only 32% in between the less than 6 months and less than 3 years. So I'm going to close that poll, switch us back over to the show. Whoops. Bear with me, I'm a little rusty on my GoToMeeting skills. Oh dear. And there. So thank you very much for answering the questions. It's going to help us a lot. We can hopefully tailor this a little bit better to the folks who've been in business for a while. So the first few slides you may not want to pay attention to as much, but there's still going to be valuable information here.
We still have the quick poll up.
Okay. Trying to get that up. And bear with me. Raphael, you're going to have some editing to do later. Okay, we're going to close the poll. Chuck, how are you looking now?
It's the raw data. We need the individual slides.
Okay.
There you go.
Bingo.
Perfect.
Okay.
No, back to the raw data.
This is one of the perils of working with a single screen.
It's still raw data.
Okay. All right. Application, where to start. I want to close the poll.
A new poll. I want to
Hide.
That's showing your showing your poll results.
All right. I want to get away from the poll. Move away from the poll. I mean, just show this as it is. Still on the poll?
There you go. Startup business. You got
That's right.
the right screen now. You're good. Bought first equipment.
Beautiful. So let me start that slide over. If you're just starting up, which apparently about a quarter of the folks who are attending are, you have yet to buy your first equipment, or you just did buy your first equipment, and you're trying to fill in the details of a business plan, kicking around the concepts for a marketing plan. You don't have any employees. You're probably working out of a spare room, living room, dining room, garage, what have you. First requirement, first and foremost, if you don't already have this, is to craft a quality business plan. And why this isn't something that you go get, you really have to spend some hours in crunching some numbers to understand what your goals are, to communicate what the objectives are, how are you going to achieve those goals, and what are the time frames to achieve those goals. When I started up my personal direct-to-garment business, I set 6 months, 12 months, and 2-year barriers or thresholds for myself, and I said I have to be at this point by 6 months, and that's going to stair-step me up to this point in 12 months. Now, they don't have to be long and complicated. Mine was basically written in pen on about 3 sheets of paper, and then I ended up, my wife ended up typing that up and making it look better. But a good business plan is really an outline for achieving success, and it's flexible. It's something that you can change as conditions change. Perhaps you start off and you have a select group of customers that you're targeting, maybe nonprofits or schools, but you find in the middle of everything that you get a great referral to a set of corporate clients who need you for some regular events. All of a sudden, the whole calculation, the whole environment changes, and you have to be able to shift gears. Well, in that case, it doesn't mean that you just throw away your plan. You need to redraft it and revise it a little bit. Not every day, not every month, but every few months. Chuck,
Can I add something?
Maybe you could share a little bit there.
Absolutely. One of the reasons that we're still in business after 27 years is that we're very good at monitoring and checking where are we spending our time, where are we spending our money, where are we making money, where are we spending our time and our effort and our money, and where are we not making money. And for us, it doesn't matter if we've done the same thing for 10 years. If we stop making money at it, we look for a different way to do it, or we look for something else to do to replace that income. We're monitoring our cash flow and our time management every 30 days, which is one of the reasons that we've actually started changing our focus over the last couple of years away from embroidery and more into DTG, because we saw a steady decline in our embroidery profit numbers while we were seeing a steady incline in our DTG numbers. We wouldn't have seen that or necessarily even known where that extra profit was coming from or where the loss was coming from on the embroidery side if we weren't continually monitoring where are we spending our time and what are we doing and how are we getting our income. So that flexible business plan is extremely important.
I actually see some comments from some folks who are on the call. One of them says that I've had a sign shop for 20 years and I'm considering adding direct-to-garment. And I would love to hear from anybody if you had a comment on this particular note about having a business plan. My guess is that the folks who've been around and who have been through the economic ups and downs have been pretty good about tracking their success and eliminating things that don't work and expanding things that really do work, but then documenting that so that they don't miss opportunities. So I'm going to move forward here. One of the key things that you have to bake into your business plan is to understand what your true production capacity. And this is where you have to be very candid with yourself and candid with your business partner, probably your spouse if you're just starting up. You need to have realistic goals. You need to be able to decide, you need to know before going in, is this really going to be part-time, or am I seriously going to achieve the ambition of moving into full-time? And that's going to determine, partially that's going to determine the output of the finished products that you can produce in an hour, in a day, in a week. Also, you have to build in, if you're going to be doing it part-time, you have to figure that 30 minutes of that time may be just you getting settled in and ramped up and logged in to your production equipment and your production computer. I made the mistake when I started up my direct-to-garment business thinking that the folks at home, my wife and my kids, would be able to run this all summer long. I think my expectations were a little bit too high. So it ended up being that we ended up doing more of the work on weekends altogether, and that limited our output, but it also helped us to kind of lower our sights a little bit on what we could achieve while both my wife and I are working and raising kids. Something else to think about is to have an equipment upgrade path from the slower production capacity to faster production capacity. That might be something that you do if you work with a vendor that has multiple product lines. For example, AnaJet does have multiple product lines, starting off with the good, reliable FP125 from the old days up to the Sprint, which we are still manufacturing and supporting, and up to the Empower I-Series 5 and 10. So there's a huge range of upgrade paths there, and it gives you a way to expand the business. The other thing you need to factor in is to have time for handling and administrative tasks. There are going to be a million things that come up just to prospect, just to quote customers, to work out the details of an order. That takes time, and that's something that is sometimes very hard to calculate and predict. But all of these things are going to be part of your cost model when it comes to profitable pricing, which we'll discuss in a coming slide. And Chuck, did you have anything else to add to this?
You know, yeah, what Joe was talking about there, factoring in how much time you can actually spend, because you can say, you know, I'm going to keep my day job, I'm going to start this business, and I'm going to come home and I'm going to work, you know, 8 hours at night. But probably not realistic. You're going to need, you know, you need downtime between the job. You need to really pay attention to how many hours you can devote to your business, and it's not just the imprinting portion. It's not just running the printer or running your garment decoration, however you're doing it. There's lots of other things that get factored into that. Paperwork, accounting, ordering, counting in, counting out, actual taking the order, interface with the customer. So it takes a little time to get those numbers really down and secure so you can really truly say to yourself, this is how many garments I can put out in a day. And that's important because you need to not overcommit. You need to be taking orders and telling customers and committing to timelines that are achievable for your business model. And everybody's business model is going to be different, so that number is going to be different for everybody.
Mm-hmm. I'm seeing a lot of different comments out there, a wide range of folks. One person saying, I'm looking into direct-to-garment because I need to be a full-time parent, at the same time making my house payment, and I am going to be taking the leap into full-time immediately. I'm glad that you're logging into this because you're going to need to pay attention for the remaining slides. Another person is saying they're trying to find DTG potential business before obtaining a machine or buying a machine and hope to get more related business. There's definitely going to be some goodness here for you. Another person is asking, is it possible to make $100,000 a year as a standalone DTG operator out of a spare bedroom with an MP5i? Yes. Short answer from the marketing guy at AnaJet, yes. But Chuck, maybe you could add some insight into there as to what when it comes to true production capacity, how do folks figure out what that is?
Well, more than even that, to go back to the question about can I make a living, make my house payment being a full-time parent or mother?
Yeah.
I have a number of printers now, and bearing in mind that we also do embroidery and we sell silk screens, so we do a number of things. But when I look at the last year that I operated with just one printer, and now bearing in mind that wasn't our core business at the time, we were only averaging 50 shirts a day that year. And it wasn't 50 of one design. That's the beauty of direct-to-garment, is it can be multiple designs because all you have to have is a digital image, load it to the RIP, and push print. But 50 a day on the older printers, in this case it was an FP125, was taking 2 to 2.5 hours a day. And that number varied depending on how many were light versus how many were dark. So the printer wasn't even working even close to half time doing those 50 shirts. 50 shirts a day, 2.5 hours, very manageable. But you start doing the math, 50 shirts a day, 5 days a week, 52 weeks a year, is over 12,000 prints, which is a much larger number. So then you go back, okay, great, you sold 12,000 shirts off the printer, but how much money did you make? We charge more for a dark shirt than we do for a light shirt. We charge more for a double than we do for a small. If we travel with the printers, so on site at some of these shows we get $20. In shop I'm going to get 15. If you're a fundraiser, I might do it for 10. And in the very, very rare instances where I do contract printing, I might print on your garments if they're light for $7. So when I averaged all that together to come up with one resale number based on my 50 a day, my average resale that year was $13.50. Now $13.50 times 12,000 shirts that we did that year means that we billed $168,000 on a machine that was working 2.5 hours a day.
So what you're saying is that it's possible.
Oh, it's very possible.
Six figures.
Right, absolutely.
But that required all the things that we've discussed as far as a business plan, a market, and graphic design ability, having the right equipment, which we're getting.
There are some slides where I can talk on that further. Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yes, it absolutely is possible.
Yeah, and so the other thing is that I wanted to speak to is that, speaking personally as a father, I know that the challenge of trying to balance the kids and the home-based business, you really have to have a high degree of discipline, and the family has to also understand that there needs to be some discipline, and you have to actually be able to devote attention over a course of a couple of hours, a solid 2 hours, a solid 3 hours, where you're focused on the job, focused on the business. I wanted to share with you a payoff calculator that I came up with. And what I did was I put in some very conservative, some high numbers for myself so that I could understand, all right, how long is it going to take me to pay off this investment? And if I have no business at all, I am not buying a DTG business. I'm having to create it organically from scratch. How hard do I have to work in order to do that? So I came up with the payoff calculator, and I just threw out a random $50,000 if I put together 50 grand. Of course, my setup didn't cost anywhere near that. It was more like 8 as I was buying refurbished equipment. But I had to come up, I wanted to have a target monthly run rate. That is, how much gross income do I want to see, do I want to realize every month? And that was a personal goal for me. I wanted to bring in $10,000. And it may be different for somebody else. It may be only 5. It may be only 3,000 for somebody who isn't looking at this as a primary source of income. The average job size actually comes from SGIA reports. So I pulled that, that's a real number, from a survey of garment decorators around the United States. So to get a number of jobs per month times 450, that's 22 jobs per month to achieve a $10,000 monthly run rate. Sounds pretty simple, right? Well, let's break it down. I have to get, if I have 22 jobs a month and I only convert 5% of my leads into actual sales, I'd have to do 444 leads a month, 103 leads per week, and that means I'd need to do a minimum of 21 sample drops per day. That's very, very aggressive, but it's totally doable. I factored in a very high cost per sample. Chuck's cost per sample is something like half of this. And I figured that if after 6 months I spent $1,500 on marketing and pounding the pavement and dropping off samples, I'd see $60,000 in gross sales. And my payoff back on the left side would be 11 months for my $50,000 investment. And these are conservative numbers. I've seen this explode for folks who get an MP5 or an MP10 and they've already got a small customer list. Their business blows up and they have payoff for an MP5 in 3 months. No kidding.
No, Joe is, by the way, is being very, very conservative, because when he says that my costs are lower, my sample costs are significantly lower. He's giving you, I think, worst case scenario here. And because it's so easy to create samples with the printer, my return on sales calls and samples are also significantly higher than he's suggesting. Yeah. Wow. Thank you very much, folks, for all these comments that are coming in. This is really, really opening my eyes here. So let's move a little bit further down. Here's another important thing that you need to do, and that is accounting software
there are inexpensive accounting packages, and you need to certainly pick one up. QuickBooks or Quicken are probably the top dogs in the business. They're very, very popular, and you need them to track your income and expenses. And you need to start immediately. From every time you drive to a supplier to pick up some shirts, for every trip that you make here or there to pick up equipment, document your mileage. Document the mileage that you're going out and making sample drops. The coffee that you get while you're out making sample drops, that's an expense for your business. Everything that you spend on inks, shirts, cleaning solution, pre-treatment solution if you're using black shirts, everything that you're doing, all the waste that you're throwing away, these are expenses that need to be tracked. And you need to generate purchase orders from your system. Chuck, talk a little bit about purchase orders and why that's important.
Well, the purchase orders are important. We utilize our suppliers. We lean on them pretty heavily. But suppliers, just like all companies, make mistakes. So if you're getting on the phone and you're talking to the person, let's say at Sanmar, and you say, I want 144 of this, I want 280 of that, I want 12 of this, all in the various sizes, and you get that product in, you need to be counting it in to make sure that it's correct. Now, if it isn't, you need something to go back to show that it isn't correct. If you just placed a PO verbally, there's no accountability. So we place everything with hard copy purchase orders directly to our suppliers. That way we can track it back. That also allows us, we count it in and we count it out and we count our losses, because as Joe was saying, at the end of the year, if we have fallout or something gets damaged, those are all things that can help you on your bottom line on your taxes at the end of the year. It also alleviates problems. If you just open the box, you ordered 288 or something, you just start printing, you deliver it to your customer says, hey, I'm 7 short. How do you know? You can go back to your paperwork system, you can go back to your invoices, you can go back all the way and find out where the issue is. Right. It's really key. Every customer and every company has problems, but the key is when you have an issue, first own up to it, figure out where it's going, and then fix it so it doesn't happen again. This helps you run a cleaner, more reputable, trustworthy company.
Mm-hmm. So that's excellent, and I actually I fell off the wagon on that one myself, and believe it or not, I had, for unrelated reasons, I actually had to document everything that I had spent on the business, and it was extremely painful to try to reassemble all that stuff in the course of even a month, because I hadn't been good about doing it for the past 7 months. And the other thing on here that I want to call out is you want to eliminate as much unnecessary taxation as possible. So get your business license, bite the bullet there so that you can get a reseller certificate. This isn't true for all states, but this is true for every state that I've seen doing business, is to get a reseller certificate so that you're not paying taxes on raw materials that you're just going to be then providing in the form of a printed shirt to somebody else. That way you're not paying taxes on the raw materials and then paying taxes again on your income. Another really strong piece of advice is look at the cost of hiring a CPA. You don't have to necessarily have one, especially if you're already good with numbers and you already have a real good discipline about tracking income expenses. If you don't, it might be a really good investment. Chuck, you're working with somebody really good right now.
Right. We have somebody come in monthly. We're really good at a couple of things here. We're really good at sales and marketing. We're really good at providing custom designs. We're really good at talking to customers and meeting our commitments. But frankly, we're crummy accountants. We tried when we started, and we would get the piece of paper from the government. We'd fill it out. We'd send a check, because every piece of paper the government sends you, they want a check with it when it comes back, which would generate more paper and more checks. And frankly, we just couldn't do it. So we have somebody come in monthly, and when she comes in, she goes back into the office, she logs onto our QuickBooks, and I can hear her back there laughing as she's making corrections and reassigning accounts and aligning the numbers. And she comes out probably 90 minutes later, here's a piece of paper, sign and check, here's a paper, sign and check, oh no, here's my check, sign this too. And the money I spend with her is so well worth it, because we do not have any issues. And if we didn't, I can't even imagine what kind of trouble we'd be in. And it's not because we were trying to do anything wrong. It's just because managing those things, it's a specialty. And that is not our core competency. Our core competency is not accounting. Our core competency is sales, marketing. And that we do very well, but we need help in other areas.
So I've had a common question come up here during the whole thing, and I just wanted just a little housekeeping. Folks, if you're on the call and you're rushed and you don't have the rest of the time to spend with us, we will be posting an archive to this webinar, and you can contact me after the show for a copy of the slides. So I will be posting that up toward the end here, or you can just email jl@anajet.com if you're in a real rush. So let me move forward here. Ramp up time. This is a tip not so much as of what you need to go buy or go produce. Don't take orders for day one when you get your machine. Why? You need to train. The best place to train is to come to our headquarters in Costa Mesa if you're looking at an AnaJet direct-to-garment printer. Why is this so important? It's critical to allow yourself a learning curve. We have had many people who have picked up a printer and they have scheduled orders, they've taken orders for day one when the printer rolls off the truck and they take it out of the box. And they run into some sort of snag. Perhaps they haven't purchased a good graphic design software. Maybe they forgot to buy a PC. Maybe they don't have a table to put the heat press on. There's any number of things that you're going to find when the carrier drops off that pallet at your home or your business and you find that you're missing. The other thing is that you haven't worked enough with the RIP software or graphic design software to really be competent, especially if you haven't had any formal training from AnaJet University or you haven't seen our upcoming online training seminars. So it's critical that you give yourself time, a week, 2 weeks. Some of you have been in business for years. Maybe you just need a few days of working with the printer because you really know inkjet really well already in your sign shop. Whatever the case may be, you've got to allow yourself a ramp-up time. You need to be absolutely competent, or confident, I should say, with Photoshop, Illustrator, and or Corel Draw. Chuck's a Corel man, and I'm a Photoshop man. But hey, if Adobe's too pricey, you're looking at $1,200 for a license of software as really, really steep. You can buy Photoshop Elements. It's around $100, and it has the basic features that you need to modify some existing graphics. Is it going to turn you into a world-class graphic designer? Probably not. But is it going to do the job for T-shirts? Absolutely. Chuck, did you have anything else on that?
The other thing I found recently is both with Adobe and with Corel Draw, you can oftentimes go on to eBay, buy an unopened previous version, so like one version back, with a license, for 25% of the price of the newest one, which still, it's going to have all the functionality of the new one. They just do these minor tweaks and upgrades. So I would suggest getting the full version. Just go to eBay and buy it. Comes with a license, new in the box.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Oh, and here's a really nice tip from Joyce. Adobe has a subscription that you can use all their products for a monthly fee of $50 to $100. Thank you for that, Joyce. That's really cool. I was not aware of that. Okay, so let's move forward. Pricing for profit. You're going to create a pricing model. The foundation of your pricing model is going to be your costs. You need to know these accounting terms if you don't already. What is cost of goods sold? That's the cost of everything that goes into producing a finished garment for that particular order. So that's the blanks that go into the order, the shipping for the supplies that are for that particular order, the inks that you used, the pre-treatment you used, and the direct labor that went into producing that order. Your overhead is everything else. The equipment purchase that you made 2 years ago or 6 months ago, the rent, utilities, insurance, taxes, administrative tasks, and non-printing labor, things like postage just to do your marketing. These are all overhead expenses, and you can add in a small overhead factor into your pricing model. So it should align with your market expectations. What does that mean? I actually have a more in-depth pricing presentation than I've delivered before, but in a nutshell, I'm going to be selling to either small one-off orders or short runs of 5 or 10, or I'm going to be going out and doing contract work that goes to retailers, or I'm going to be doing contract work that goes to a promotional products distributor, or I'm going to try to compete with my local screen printer. At every single level of market expectation, your prices have to be different because they're going to be looking for either price shopping, or they're going to be looking for a high degree of customer service, or looking for an extremely high degree of personalization and customization. The more personalized, And the smaller the order is, the higher your price needs to be. You also need to factor in your capacity to work on the business, which we've talked about already, and your skill level with graphic design. If you're just getting started and cutting your teeth on Photoshop or Corel Draw, can you take on the most complex designs that have sleeve prints, hem prints, front and back, printing on non-shirt materials? You might want to allow yourself some time to practice and get very familiar with the machine and with graphic design. The structure should be created to make you money. In other words, don't try to compete on price with every single order that comes your way. If you do, you'll win every single price, but you'll end up being doing charity work. It's going to be you giving away the farm and working for free. So I always say don't race to the bottom, and Chuck has a different take on pricing for profit.
Yeah, my deal is if I have the lowest price in town, I'll have the lowest price in town until the day I go broke. And I'm not interested in going broke. My business license says I'm a for-profit corporation in the state of Washington. And every year when we get our new license, before I put it in the frame, I take a highlighter and I highlight that part just to make sure that everybody that's here understands the for-profit part. The be aware of competition, real versus perceived. That's very important because you'll go see a customer who's used to seeing a one-color silkscreen job. You'll take him this beautiful direct-to-garment printed that has fades and blends and who knows how many colors, because I think the printer will print 16 million different colors using the CMYK palette. They've never seen anything like it, and he'll say, well, that's great, except I can get a silkscreen shirt, for $6. Well, he probably can if he buys it in the right quantity, but he'll never get the kind of graphic that you can show him. He'll never get it with the time frame. He'll never get it with with that customization and that soft feel and things that you can provide. It is a different market, so you have to be aware of the real versus perceived, especially if you're dealing with silk screening, because direct-to-garment is not about replacing silk screening. I still sell an awful lot of silk screening. It's in addition to silk screening, and there is a market that direct-to-garment will absolutely eat silk screening lunch all day long. But there's also a market where silk screening, will eat your lunch, especially when you're talking with the higher volume spot color orders. So you really need to be aware of the table.
Yeah, go ahead, Chuck.
I was going to say, so you really need to be aware of who your competition is and what your customers' expectations are.
Yeah, if you're coming to the table looking to get into DTG so that you can compete with the screen printers, stop right now. That's not the first lowest hanging fruit for you. Are there direct-to-garment printers owners who beat the pants off of screen printers? Absolutely yes. Do we have screen printers who print hundreds of garments on their DTG machines instead of doing a screen setup? Absolutely yes, because it's a pain in the butt. They don't like working with emulsifying. They don't like working with creating the screens, having to reclaim the screens later, and having to store them for future clients. It's so much easier for them to just take a graphic, rip it, print it, even if it takes them a couple of hours to produce 150 pieces on an MP10. It's worth it because they save that 30 minutes to create one screen for one color. We hear this all the time from our top ink customers who also own screen presses. So don't go into it trying to compete with screen printers. That's going to take you straight to the bottom. Let's move forward here. So here's a checklist of marketing 101 tasks that everyone should do. If you haven't already thought about this might be a good refresher. You want to get business cards. I know quite a few people who are in business and still don't have business cards. You're missing huge opportunities to get leads. Everyone you know should have your business card. And we also have a couple of really strong sign makers, commercial printers who create really nice vinyl signs. And I'm just about to go get my decal for the back window of my car. You want to make sure you configure your voicemail system to have a really nice greeting. If you have a cell phone and you use that as your primary, and folks get a robot when they call, it's really annoying. I hate leaving voicemails for robots. Join your local Chamber of Commerce. Now, this might be a good tip even for folks who have been in business for more than 3 years, because the Chamber of Commerce is a massive lead source. And when you think about the number of orders you could get from a Chamber of Commerce versus the cost to join, the math does itself. It's a no-brainer. Andy Buchholz out in a rural town in eastern Virginia, 1,200 people joined the local chamber, and the same day he joined, he got an order for $2,000 because they were looking for someone who could do what he can do on a direct-to-garment printer. He wanted to create and send out some postcards, and we had a customer at a live classroom session that we did at NBM recently. They used a mailing house to design a postcard, and they hit 1,000 or 2,000 local addresses, and it paid for itself 10 times over. Then the mailing house designed the actual postcard for them, and it was cheaper than them going to try to do a bulk mailing on their own. So it's amazing. Last thing I just threw on here is radio ads. Believe it or not, not too expensive. It will cost you some money to produce a voiceover with a really good speaker, really good voices talent, but the radio spots themselves can be super cheap, and they are going to get you leads and get your phone ringing, which is what we all want. What about you, Chuck? Is there anything else that you would do as
we're really big on targeted marketing sales calls.
Mm-hmm.
We're actually out in the field with customers. Again, with the ease of direct-to-garment printing, we print customer-specific samples, and we're making sales calls with a sample in our hand that is specific to that exact customer. Mm-hmm. when we're out making sales calls. Again, with my cost model, it's about $2 for a sample with their name on it. Would this be a good time to talk about our success rate and how we do that, Joe, or would you like me to hold on that?
Well, I think I have one question that a customer actually asks. An attendee wants to know, how quickly can you print off 1 or 2 samples at a time? All the customers I have would be ordering 1 or 2 at a time.
Yeah, it's a matter, but from the time that I have a graphic on my screen, and it depends on which printer I'm using, but an MP10, I've seen it print a full front white shirt in 19 seconds.
Right.
It actually takes longer to put it on the heat press than it does to actually print the garment.
But if you get a sprint, a 10 by 12 graphic on a sprint on a white shirt, 30 seconds.
Yeah, 30, 40 seconds. Yeah,
right.
And then again to the heat press, and you've got it. When I make these sales calls, a lot of times I've created the graphic for the customer, something I have in clip art or something that is pertinent to their business. They'll say, well, it's great, except I have a graphic. So, oh, can you email that to me? Yeah, they email it right there. I go back to the shop. We'll print one. I'm back in their office in under 40 minutes with a sample of their graphic on a shirt. Did
they ever get upset that you stole their copyright?
No, they send it to me. Yeah. So we go and I print it, and bang, I'm back in 40 minutes.
Right.
Now, and I have a 40% success rate doing it that way when I make sales calls with customer targeted samples. 40%.
Okay.
When I do it without, if I just walk in and say, hey, I'm Chuck with Creative Promotions, we can do screening, we do your embroidery, direct-to-garment printing, our success rate is just under 10%. But when we started doing the customer-specific samples and walk in, and now I say, look what I have done for you, our success rate is almost 40%,
mm-hmm.
which is huge, and that just leads to further things. None of those orders are big. If I get 12 pieces out of one of those, that's great. But mm-hmm. that woman who works at the counter, she has a daughter that plays soccer. Somebody else in the back office, they're on the PTA at the local school, or they co-own a business. They have a plumbing business they work. It just leads to other things, and it grows and it grows and it grows. I mean, I don't know if anybody follows some of my posts, but I did this thing on one piece that I gave away to a local coffee shop. I gave away one shirt to a coffee shop. I swapped it for a week's worth of my favorite coffee. And off of her referrals, last time I went back and checked, I had almost 1,000 shirts from giving away one shirt. But it was 1,000 shirts from about 15 different customers because mm-hmm. one led to another.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, let's go to this model here very quickly because we want to wrap up the startup section here and move forward. So here is your model for building with no sales calls.
Yeah, you've reworked this.
I reworked it.
Yeah, it looks cool. What a lot of people who are just starting, one of their fears is making sales calls. They have a fear of rejection. They don't want to go talk to people. They don't know what to say. So I created this slide that Joe is. That's why marketing guys are nice. He does a great job with this. This is what someone nice can find. This is meant to be, the top line here is just people that you know. And these numbers are going to be different for anybody. So I kind of used my numbers here just to create this. So, you look at where your kids go to school, where you go to church, your coworkers, your email lists, social media, whoever you know. Unless you change it, this is going to use my 10% rule, not my 40% rule. This gives you 900 potential customers to call from, okay? So using my 10% rule, if you take that down, it's 50, 25, 5, and 10. Okay, these are, again, my lower numbers following my 10% rule. So if your average order is 20 pieces, and you can do the math here, average price of $15, which is my in-shop price, that's $2,700 in sales just from people that are already in your circle, people you're already comfortable with, people you're already dealing with, people you probably talk to at least on a weekly basis. Now that's
you just have to
the
do the bare
line.
minimum. You have to do the bare minimum of making them aware of your business and,
what you do, because
doing some cold sampling.
These people are your friends. They want to help you. They're going to give you orders. They're going to try it out. But again, like I was talking about when we make the targeted sales calls, each one of these will lead to many other orders. This is just the starting point. And look at $2,700 in sales just off your circle. And if your numbers are bigger than mine, that bottom line number is going to be bigger.
Right.
It is once you get it going, it is self-perpetuating.
Right. So I just want to interrupt just a little bit to say we're getting some technical questions about the printers, the AnaJet printers. And I want to say that we did not set out to do an actual technical call to be a product pitch, but I will answer printer questions at the end of the regular presentation. So the next slide here, we're talking about buying smart and maintaining your equipment. And lo and behold, there's an AnaJet Empower. The age-old caveat is you get what you pay for. And that applies to not just the printer, but to every piece of equipment that you purchase for a business, whether it's your heat press, your pre-treatment sprayer, your Wagner sprayer, the computer you're using to run the business, the graphic software. You definitely need a hygrometer and a non-condensing humidifier. If you have a wide open space, you're probably going to need an enclosure to make sure that your printer has the right level of humidity when it's not in use. And one of the three legs of the stool is regular, disciplined maintenance for your printer. It's not a paper printer. It's also not a car that you just put oil and gas in and it runs. You actually do need to go in and take care of it. The analogy I think of is you have paper printers and you have an AnaJet printer. They are as different as a Toyota Camry and a Formula One race car. And with your Toyota Camry, you can just put gas and oil in it, change the brakes and tires, and it runs. With the Formula One race car, there is a pit crew. There is a $1 million team that is focused on making sure that those automobiles are running at peak levels. They test their equipment constantly, and they're always looking at ways that they could get more out of their equipment. So if you use regular maintenance on good equipment, it's going to take care of you.
Very true. My first printer, my FP125, it's well past 6 years old now. The last time I looked at the print counter on it, it was above 63,000 prints. And that's because we take care of it. It's, for us, the printers are the goose that laid the golden egg. We spend the time to keep them clean, to keep the ink flowing properly, and to do all the preventative maintenance on them. And they have returned the favor by producing, like I say, that particular one over 63,000 prints. Mm-hmm. So it's an interesting number. Again, that's over many years. But if you take that 63,000 number, prints, and multiply that times my average resale at $1,350, that's a very nice return on investment.
Mm-hmm. Here's a quick list, folks, for graphics and other suppliers. You're going to need a graphics library. If you happen to go with the InkSoft option that AnaJet bundles with the sale of each new printer, they have a library of 4,000 images. They're color-separated images. So they work for both direct-to-garment and for screen printing purposes, or even for embroidery purposes. There's no limit there for what you can do with the InkSoft application. Great Dane Graphics is the one that I recommend to everyone because their graphics are usually full color, but they also have color separations too. But they have a really nice digital look and feel. And Great Dane has written.
I said they're photorealistic. They look awesome on.
Yeah, these are the graphics that AnaJet uses for its samples. The Bobcat, for example, it's pretty popular. You need to get Great Dane's, either the Photoshop or the Corel book. It's $99, and it teaches you so much that I didn't know about how to work with graphics for T-shirts. This is an expert tip for folks who've been in business already for a while. They may think they have a great graphics library. You haven't seen a great graphics library until you've cracked open one of these books. They're fantastic. We've got all 4 of them. Action Illustrated, they have tons of good books, color-separated images. Digital Art Solutions, and VNS Rhinestones, and that's if you want to sweeten your graphics with a little bit of application. As far as blank shirts, we use Spectra. We have also used Delta, All Style. We've used Gildan. We've used all these different vendors. And at the bottom, there's a little one known as DTG Ready, but they only sell pre-treated shirts on black. So
You know, going back to the VS rhinestone thing for just a second.
Sure.
I don't typically do one color prints on my printer. That's usually silkscreen business for us. But we had a short run. They needed 48 shirts. They needed them quickly. They were doing a cancer walk. It was a bunch of young women. I don't think any one of them was over 19. And they were the Rainbow Glitter team. Rainbow Glitter Unicorns was the name of the team. And they had this black unicorn we put on there. We added one rhinestone on that print in the eye of the unicorn, and those women lost their minds. I mean, they just the addition of one rhinestone in the eye of this unicorn made all the difference in the world.
Yeah, we have also add-on applications. I'm going to do a little plug here for metal foil. If you haven't seen metal foil in action, if you haven't seen a demonstration of this, you need to look at metal foil. It is an outstanding application. It automatically adds $5 to your selling price to pretty much any garment. And you sweeten something up with a little bit of bling, you immediately added value for that customer. And I just can't say enough about it. The reaction we get when we demonstrate that to people, their jaws just hit the floor.
Well, and it's a perfect product because it actually costs less to print a foil graphic than it does a full color graphic.
Right.
And it has a higher perceived value, even though it costs you less to manufacture. And that's a formula that works really well for me. Produce it for less, sell it for more. I like that all day long.
Yeah, that's metal foil. Metal foil is the application, and it's on our website. Let's move forward here. For existing imaging businesses, and thank you folks for being patient, sticking around. The folks that we're talking to now have a customer base. They've got many regular accounts. They've discovered that, guess what, there's only 168 hours in a week, and I need to sleep for at least 8 of those hours, so I have to hire somebody. You probably have a storefront or maybe even a rented space. Maybe you converted part of your house into full-time business. DTG printers, the good news is that they take up a minimal footprint. But unlike this photo, you actually have to have a space large enough so that your printer and your heat press are 5 to 6 feet apart. The reason is that your heat press is churning out a constant 330 degrees of hot air. Chuck, what do AnaJet printers hate more than anything else?
Yeah, heat and dry air.
Yes. So you want to be able to make sure that you can have some distance between these two pieces of equipment so that you can keep a relative humidity above 45%.
Right.
We say
the rule that we use
is a minimum.
The rule we use when we travel with our printers, if we can feel the heat from the heat press when we're standing by the printer, the heat press is too close.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, one of the things that people ask all the time, I live in a high humidity area. I live in Central Florida. I live in Seattle. I live in someplace. I live in monsoon season year round. Don't worry about it. That's fine. It's okay as long as you're seeing on your hygrometer. Get a hygrometer anyways. It's $10 at Home Depot. As long as it's in the 50 range and up, you should be fine. But as long as you're avoiding a lot of heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, meaning moving air, hot or cold, doors, dust, excess moisture, things spraying water on your printer. These are all things that have happened. I'm not kidding, folks. These are all things that these printers have been subject to, and people wonder, why did it fail? Okay, it's a sensitive piece of electronics, but you don't want to be aiming a shower head at it. You also don't want to be doing it in the middle of the desert. How do you get around that? You buy a small, when you're not printing, you buy a small enclosure thing such as a grill cover. We use a grill cover for our sprint that we use for tech support. Works awesome. Doesn't matter if it gets hot. As long as you've got that little non-condensing humidifier running near your printer, and when you're not running the printer and it's just running auto maintenance, you have the grill cover over it. Keep that hygrometer next to it and watch what happens. You're going to see it drop down when you take the cover off. But if you're running that printer, you're all good. A happy printer is a running printer.
Yeah, I can add to that because one of the places we take one of our printers in the summertime is to Yakima, Washington, which is high desert. The humidity is typically, like 10, 11%. We have never had an issue there because we're running the printer. Humidity is only an issue if the printer's not printing and the ink is not moving. So it is possible to take them into these low humidity environments. You just have to be conscious of your ink management and your ink flow. We travel extensively with these printers, with the sprints and the FP125s, And as long as we are taking, again, we're not pouring water on them or anything, and we have them under a 10 by 10 pop-up, but they perform very well. Then at the end of the day, because we're printing all day, everything's fine. We clean them, and they're ready for the next day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you use a heat press, Chuck, when you're curing the shirts, or do you use a conveyor dryer? Which one do you recommend?
We sell silk screening, but we are not actually a silk screen shop, so we don't have a conveyor dryer. We're curing the shirts exclusively with heat presses in the shop and on the road.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So just a note on that, you can use a conveyor dryer for pre-treated shirts and for curing the shirts. We don't have a spec on that. We just know that you need to hit a certain temperature. The reason that most of our customers don't use a conveyor dryer is because conveyor dryers are slow. AnaJet printers can output, and I have a speed demonstration that I posted on the web. It's on YouTube. You look for Empower speed test. We did 25 shirts in 18 minutes. And that means that, on average, we were running a shirt in and out of the press in 40 seconds. Okay? What does that mean for a conveyor dryer? Well, you slap it on there and you're waiting 2, 3, 4 minutes, maybe 6 or 7 minutes for one shirt to go get fully baked. That's not going to be good enough if you're running production. If you're running an order for 300 pieces and you need to get it done today, conveyor dryer might not cut it for you. So think about investing in a $6,000 conveyor dryer or $800 for one heat press, $1,600 for 2 heat presses, for some pretty decent quality ones. And you'll see that the heat press kind of makes more economic sense. But you know what? If you swear by the results that a conveyor dryer delivers, then go for it. It's definitely an option.
Joe, back a point too to your humidity. It's 85% relative humidity in Seattle today. No issues whatsoever with printing.
Yeah. Sweet. So let's move on here. Thank you, folks, for all these comments. These are really good coming in here. We don't have a specific conveyor dryer that we recommend. We do bundle a heat press along with some of our new printers. It depends on which printer you're looking at. When it comes to optimizing your inventory, this is one that Chuck came up with. You're going to be churning through a lot of shirts, and this is very important for folks who are running a sign shop. Do you have a big space that you want to carve out to store boxes and boxes of T-shirts? Probably not. So what can you do? You're going to use your suppliers' warehouses as your own. You're only going to hang on to sample stock, just a couple hundred pieces of different sizes and colors. And you're going to push back on your supply chain. So believe it or not, most of them will do free overnight shipping when your order is over $200. That's pretty cool. Or same-day shipping, I should say, not overnight. And you can use RMAs when you have overstock, and this will happen. There's no reason for you to carry a half case of shirts that you don't think you're going to be using in the next couple months. So eat the restocking fees and don't hang on to unused blanks unless they're pre-treated. Right, Chuck?
Absolutely. Yeah, if you've ordered that 72 light purple shirts for that organization that changed their mind, send them back. If you have a good working relationship with your supplier, they probably are not going to charge you restocking for 1 or 2 orders. If you have a history of it, they may hit you 10 or 15%, but still, you're getting the bulk of your money back, and you're not sitting on that inventory that will probably never be used. So yeah, absolutely return it. They all have RMA systems. They'll even send you call tags most of the time. There's no need. It just clutters up your space and eats into your cash flow.
So let's move on. That's good. This is a very interesting tip that Chuck has a great story to share. You want to partner up with folks who you perceive as your competition if you develop a trusting relationship with them. And why is this? There are a lot of garment decorators out there. Some of them may have direct-to-garment printers. Some may have dye subs. Some of them may have other types of heat transfer. Some of them may use screen printing or even airbrushing, believe it or not. But my recommendation was originally go out and visit the decorators in your area. Find out who they are and what their core competencies are, and drop off your business card. Drop off some digitally printed samples with them. It's weird, but guess what? You're going to get referral business from this, and you'll be able to kind of dovetail with each other sometimes if they have overflow or you have overflow, and Chuck has a perfect example of this.
Yeah, absolutely. This particular company with the graphic they're showing up there, their main competency, they are a tattoo art company. and they recently bought an MP5i, and they're in my local area, so you think, okay, they're competitors. But you know what? I am so busy up here, and I'm on the road so much that I need people that I can trust to send my customers to, or customers in my overflow that I can't handle. I bet I've sent them over 1,000 pieces in the last 3 months since they first got their printer. They are an up-and-going concern, and weren't they featured on your blog this month, Joe?
Mm-hmm. Yes, they are.
They're a growing concern. They've had the printer a short time. They've totally embraced it. They're building a stand for it. They're going to travel with it. They're probably going to be, I wouldn't be a bit surprised if they buy a second printer within the next 3 to 4 months, because they've devoted themselves to learning how to use the printer, to marketing. That's their big thing. They're absolutely marketing their product online and in person. And yeah, I'm sure that Rachel's going to quit her day job probably within the next 90 days.
For her. Somebody asked a question. I'm sorry to spell this out. RMA is return or maintenance authorization. It's pretty common when you're working with
return
vendors.
material. Right.
And return materials, yeah. Spurring sales through the referrals, we've pretty much covered this. But one point that I would bring up is that if you have a formal referral plan and you make it visible on your business cards, your website, your postcards, anything that you're churning out, maybe even on your sample shirts, that if you're telling people, guess what, you bring me an order, and I close that order, I'm going to give you a $20 Amazon.com gift certificate. You just created an unpaid sales force out there for yourself through your customers. And even people who don't buy shirts from you could turn into customers just because they think, hey, I'm going to get that $20 gift certificate. So it's up to you. If you want to do discounts or if you want to make sure that you call out that you're giving free design work, those kind of things can attract new customers too. So improving your web presence. Beef up what you've got, folks. You've been going really strong and you're really successful. You've got a huge list of accounts. That's awesome. Now take pictures of the shirts that you can print with digital. Put stuff onto your blog. Put it onto your website. If you don't already have it, build a Facebook page. We have dozens of customers who drive all of their business through Facebook because it's local. It's talking about it's people that they know. They're already connected. There's already a level of trust that they have with their friends, and that has helped build my business and has been Facebook. I built a Facebook page specifically for my business, but it doesn't work for everybody. I know.
That's back to Rachel. That's their online presence is primarily Facebook.
Yeah, yeah. Not everybody wants to do social media. That's fine if you're a little skittish about social media, but bear this in mind. When you're starting a business, especially if you're doing it from home, or if you're a sole proprietorship and you've been in business for years, you know you're the #1 salesperson. You need to be self-promoting. That's the only way that you're going to grow and survive, is if you are promoting yourself and you're not bashful about it. There's another thing that you can do, and that is to look for events or exhibits where you can bring your printer and print on demand. People will flock around your machine just to watch that shirt being printed. It's amazing. So that actually leads to this point. Take your business mobile. And we're getting towards the end here. This is looks slight, but this is a huge, huge piece of advice. There's an article in Impressions from April on mobile garment decoration. You can now, with a direct-to-garment printer, load it up in your vehicle, load up the heat press, and load up a bunch of white blanks, maybe even some black pre-treats, and go to a show. And you're offering on-the-spot decoration of shirts. You're doing it on demand. You're doing even custom graphics if people happen to have a little thumb drive with them. This will blow people's minds, and they will pay cash on the barrel. 4,000, 5,000, but it's huge, and there's a lot of potential for going on site with a mobile decorating unit.
Yeah, we're typically at car shows. We're typically doing at least $3,000 on a weekend.
Yeah, that's awesome. Good question. Do we need permits for such events? Absolutely, yeah. There's going to be a booth fee for, let's say, a local school fair, just to sponsor the little booth, or a large county fair is going to charge you $800 for a 10 by 10 spot, for example. So yeah, you should expect that there's going to be fairs, there's going to be fees to exhibit at most of these types of events. Not all of them, though. Sometimes they'll invite you for free, and Chuck, you've got specific experience around that.
I tell you how we do that is we'll go to the car show the first year, and we purposely don't register the second year. And they have a list of the vendors, so they're calling to find out why are you coming back, if you're just not signed up yet. And I always say, yeah, I'm probably not going to come this year. And really, why? They always ask why. They're just aghast that you wouldn't come back to their car show. I said, well, a couple of reasons. First, you charged me $50 or $75, whatever it was, for the booth. You put me next to the stinky hot dog vendor. I didn't like that very much. And while I was there, I had 2 or 3 other guys who are having car shows that weekend or close by weekends, and I'm probably going to go to one of theirs instead. And then there's a little awkward silence when I don't say anything. And I say, oh, well, how about this? How about if we give you a better spot and we waive the fee, would you be willing to donate a shirt for a door prize? Well, always. So I pay the first year. I never pay the second year because you're a draw. People look for you. They want you there. The people who are doing the event want you there because it draws a crowd for their event also. And plus, a lot of these shirts we print have advertising on them, so it out in the community to advertise us, so they want us to sell these garments. Now, talking about the permits, if you're going to do a farmer's market, absolutely you have to have your business license in addition to the fee. They're going to check. Before they let you come in, they have to make sure you're a legitimate business. And as Joe said earlier, we always recommend the business license and the taxes and things as you get the proper permits. A lot of these smaller fairs, the car shows and those things, they're not going to check other than make sure that they get their money for your booth. But still, it's a good idea.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and this is something I want to explore when I get more familiar and more comfortable with my printer too. So some concluding thoughts on this whole presentation, and then I want to actually answer some of these technical questions that have piled up. First thing is train. No matter what level you're at, you can't get enough of formal training, online training when we publish that, and hands-on, over-the-shoulder learning from folks who have used DTG printers. That I can't stress that enough. Too many people have made a substantial investment in equipment and tried to launch a business, but they weren't properly trained on graphics or on the RIP software or on taking care of their printer, or they fell down on all three. To practice using the printer, don't wait for an order to come in. To work with your printer and see what you can do with a particular style of garment. You have a blend, an 80-20 blend shirt. You want to know, what's the washability going to be? Well, don't wait for an order. Go get an 80-20 shirt from Walmart or from the local craft store or from your supplier and print up 1, 2, 3, 4 of these shirts. Try it with pretreatment. Try it without pretreatment. Work with it. Practice, practice, practice. That's how you get to Carnegie Hall. Track everything. Having that CPA helps. Having a professional who is a numbers person who even enforces discipline around that is going to make a huge difference when it comes to tax time. Chuck's probably his #1 point is get out there and sample aggressively. Be your #1 salesperson. No one else is going to do it for free. Get out there and do sample drops. Do custom sample drops if possible. Do it every day. Make a point of saying, okay, on Monday, I've got to make 10, 15, 20 drops. That's going to get me to the rest of the week where I can dial it back on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. But I have to hit it hard and psych myself up for Monday. Everyone you know, and I will wager money on this, everyone you know has something that they want to see on a custom shirt. And if you surprise them with it and say, guess what, I can do that for you, got 15 bucks, they'll pay you. They'll jump at it. The 3 legs of the stool that I reiterate to everybody, the 3 legs of the stool for successful direct-to-garment line of business is to have your marketing down, your customer lists, your email, your newsletter, your website, whatever it is. If you have a competent marketing machine that's driving leads and referrals, that's one. graphic software and understanding how to work with it, whether it's, again, Adobe Suite or it's Corel Draw, makes no difference. If you're competent with the graphic design, then you've got that leg of the stool nailed. The third leg of the stool is disciplined maintenance. And this is a habit that folks need to get into. And it's a habit that is so easy to fall out of when the thrill is gone and you're high from just unpacking your machine and setting up and printing your first 5, 10 shirts. And then that fades away. And then you miss a weekly maintenance, scheduled maintenance. And then you miss 2 or 3 weekly scheduled maintenances. You still need to do those, and you fell off the wagon. You can't do that. You have to commit to a disciplined, regular maintenance for your printer. And I don't care what manufacturer it is. I don't care who made it or whether it runs white ink or just CMYK. You have to take care of that printer. Some manufacturers even require that you flush after every job. Luckily, that's not the case with AnaJet printers. Chuck, did you have anything else to add?
Yeah, it really is all about care and feeding of the printer. You do need to take care of it because it's the device that's going to make you money. Joe was talking about marketing. Again, we go back, we do direct marketing. We're actually out in front of the customers every single day making sales calls. That's really what drives our business. It's all about providing that sample, providing that high-resolution, brightly colored, multicolored graphic product that they have never seen before. That flexibility to come into a customer and even come back 2 or 3 times if they want to see different things. It really, really drives business.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, let's move on here. We got some great technical questions, and I just want to follow up and close. If you have to go, remember, hit us on our blog or hit anajet.com/anajet.com. Look for the events and webinars page to find the archived live recording of this. Set up, or what do I need to do to start up a business? And if you want to see a live demo, we're going to be doing several trade shows in the month of September, and we run demos continuously. So technical questions, I'm going to run these to Chuck. Is a Sprint a better option than the Empower for going mobile?
I believe that it is. I do know people that are going mobile with the Empowers, but the Sprint weighs 79 pounds, so you can easily lift it. It goes through a standard doorway without tipping it on its side, which an Empower will not.
That's a good consideration.
Yeah, the standard doorway thing is a big issue. We have an Empower in the shop. It has never left the shop. Now, under the right conditions, that's not saying I wouldn't take it, but frankly, the Sprints are a better option, in my opinion, for that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. One other thing, I'm going to throw this out there before the next question. My email, jl@anajet.com. And you guys can email me for anything that you need, any questions, any follow-ups that you want to have. Or if you're having technical questions, go ahead and hit me up, jl@anajet.com. There's a certain gentleman here who has been blowing up the question interface and had a lot of really good questions. Does inkjet work as well as silkscreen for washability?
Yeah, the couple of considerations. First, the inks that you're using in these printers, they are water-based textile inks. So if you're asking do they work as well, there's a different look and feel. They're not shiny like plastisol. They have a much more matte finish, but a much smoother touch. Now, because they're water-based, it is important that they be washed in cold water. It's not about the drying, it's about the washing. But the good news is the image will never crack, it will never peel. If you hit it with hot water, it will fade some, but it's still there. Over time, as your garment fades, the image will fade with the garment, 25, 30, 35 washes, which would be normal with any imprint. But they're distinctly different products, but for different markets. Silkscreen ink, with being plastic, you're going to have to set up the screens. You're going to get 4 or 5 colors tops. Again, DTG, 16 million colors.
Mm-hmm. So another question: most schools and churches already have decorating sources. How do you break through into those accounts?
What I do is I call the school. Schools are one of our big markets. We will call the school. We'll get the correct spelling of the school. We'll get their school colors, and we'll find out what their mascot is. We have an extensive clip art library. Now, it doesn't matter if it's a high school or it's a grade school. There are different markets. You know, if it's a high school and they're the bees, they want an angry bee that looks like it's going to, frankly, it's going to rip your head off your shoulders. If it's a grade school, they want a happy bee. So you need to be attentive to the market you're selling into. But what we do is we will get as brightly colored and as many colored graphic as we can. Because most of these schools are used to seeing a 1 or 2 color silk screen print. They've never seen anything like you can print digitally. And again, we walk in with this shirt that says, might say Mar Vista Elementary School, has a picture of this bee on it that we, clip art or we downloaded from the internet, wherever we got it. And look what we have done for you. We show that to the office staff. They immediately take it to the principal. Now what happens is you're going to get an order out of that. Like my track record, 40% of the time I'm going to get an order. Again, it's not going to be huge. And it's going to be a staff order. Now those staff people, they're the ones that are going to lead you to the PTA. And the PTA is where you want to be at because you want to be selling to the kids. So, but it's a process. You start with the staff. You walk in with that customer-specific sample, and you always leave it. And and it doesn't hurt if you can figure out what size the principal is before you leave or before you make the sales call.
So, question about shirts. Little off topic here, but folks are wanting to know, in general, what is the best running shirt on a printer, and do you pre-treat white shirts?
I do not pre-treat white shirts. I don't find it necessary. I understand that they do make it perhaps a little brighter, but I haven't. If it does, it's like a little bit. It's not like, oh my Lord, that's a whole lot brighter. And there's a lot of, people have their favorites. With white shirts, as long as they're high cotton content, really doesn't make that much difference. Where you get the difference is when you get into dark shirts and you're pre-treating and you're printing with white ink, it makes a lot of difference. For a generic shirt that comes in a lot of different colors, one of the ones that Joe didn't mention that I really like is from Sanmar. It's their style PC61. It's 100% cotton, and the reason I like it is I think it comes in at least 40 different colors, but it comes in matching women's style and youth style, so I can sell across the entire size spectrum and gender spectrum and keep uniformity of color and kind of a generic style. The one that what you have to look out for also, by the way, is if you have a shirt that's really soft and it has a really nice hand to it, the reason it has that nice hand to it is it's probably fuzzy, and that's by design. They engineer those shirts with a light level of fuzz on them that your eye can't see, but that your fingertips can feel. So when you go to pre-treat or put white ink on that shirt, the fuzz gets the pre-treat in the white ink, so it's very hard to get a good direct-to-garment print on any of those really, really soft shirts.
Okay. Well, I think that we've answered all the questions that we have time for, and folks have stuck around for quite a long time, and I really appreciate your attention and attendance today. So I just want to say thank you again for attending, and if you have any questions, again, feel free to hit us up on AnaJet.com, do the request info. Apologies for the form, but if you want to speak to a live person, you can always give us a call. It's 877-626-2538. And again, my email which I sent out to the crowd is jl@anajet.com. And thank you very much.